Hi, this is Dr. Robert Frankel. Welcome back to another episode of the Modern Man Podcast, where we talk about men's health and wellness and the most cutting edge medical care when it comes to this, as well as men's aesthetics and men's hormone health. And we talk about in the context of what is the scientific protocols, what are the pluses and minuses, what do we feel about all the hot things that are out there when it comes to our medical health and wellness for our modern men. So thank you. I appreciate your listenership. If you like this content, please do like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. So welcome again. And today we're going to be talking about something quite interesting. We're going to continue our longevity project today on the Modern Man Podcast. We're going to be discussing some aspects of what we talked about on the last podcast, which was the NAD podcast, NAD fact or fiction. But today we're going to be talking about something quite interesting. We're going to be talking about zombie cells and how they age your skin and your hair. And it's pretty exciting. We're going to talk about a specific manifestation of what happens when our bodies age and we lose certain important processes that cause this aging process, and how we can kind of use modern medicine to be able to kind of pinpoint what's happening, how to correct it, how to improve it, find the deficiencies that are out there, and actually make them better. So we're excited, and thanks again. And we're going to start today to discuss about these zombie cells or senescent cells. And we're going to talk about like how they occur, what kind of problems they occur when we talk about aging your skin and hair, and how we can improve and how we can correct these problems. So before we get started, I always like to start, every one of the podcasts with an interesting question. We know there have been a lot of great zombie movies out there. We know that what zombies do are very similar to what these zombie cells are going to do. What the zombie cells are going to do is essentially raise havoc on our skin, but also our entire body by creating the conditions where they're inflammatory, they stop the process of repairing damaged DNA, they stop the process of the production of collagen, production of elastin, which has a lot to do with the fluency of our skin, the tightness of our skin, and as well as like the fine lines and wrinkles that are created. So let's discuss how this happens, why this happens, and how we're going to correct it. But before we get started, I wanted to, put this out there to the community. And when you go through the podcast, just drop a comment below on what your favorite zombie movie is, and tell me why you feel that way. And I appreciate it. So my favorite zombie movie, if you were so interested in, is the Dawn of the Dead, from the 1970s Dawn of the Dead, not any remakes. I don't know when the remakes were made, but the original Dawn of the Dead, which was a George A. Romero movie, was definitely the most interesting zombie movie that I recall. It wasn't super scary if you kind of like look it up if you haven't seen it before. But it was pretty entertaining for sure. There were a lot of really interesting tropes that I think a lot of zombie movies were created because of that particular movie. So check it out if you haven't, and let me know like what your favorite zombie movie was, because we want to know here at the Modern Man Podcast. We want to get the recommendations from all our listeners on what they think their favorite zombie movie is. So anyway, that being said, let us talk a little bit about what zombie cells are, what they do, and how we can correct it. So the first thing is zombie cells are what we call senescent cells, cells that no longer divide. So these are cells that are present in the body that are no longer doing their natural functioning, and that meaning they're no longer kind of dividing, they're no longer like producing like productive areas in the skin. And what instead they are doing is they are taking up space, just like regular zombies, and they are also often causing natural processes like DNA repair, like natural division, to be hindered because of the fact that of their presence. What are zombie cells created by? Well, they're often created by the fact that we will not have DNA integrity, meaning that the DNA that's present has not repaired itself correctly, and often these cells, have DNA that is beyond repair. And so that pretty much kind of like sums it up. What exactly is the problem? Because of the fact that it's no longer functional, it's damaged beyond repair. And how does this happen? Well, one of the major things that we talked about in the last podcast, which I recommend you taking a listen to, is that when certain cells called senescent cells are not activated or present, and they're best activated with things like NAD, curcumin, resveratrol, but specifically NAD, because NAD is kind of like the main cofactor. If there is no NAD, then sirtuin cells can no longer exist. So this definitely is a big thing. Now, what they do is they help to elongate telomere size. And what a telomere is essentially is these caps that sit on the DNA that protect them. So they're like the protectorates of the DNA. And so when the telomeres are short, which happens over time as we age, then the DNA is no longer protected as well as they would be as if the telomere size is elongated. And so when you are low on NAD, when you're low on sirtuins, then you are going to have this phenomenon where the cells are going to have a higher propensity to get damaged and not be able to repair. So when the zombie cells or the senescent cells are present, what they mostly do is they produce inflammation in the body, and this is definitely a major problem, as well as the fact that they're going to just be non-functional and often cause more problems for other cells that are trying to do their natural processes. And of course, what we worry about most is that with DNA repair, you can get lots of autoimmune diseases. You can increase the risk of cancer production. You can increase the risk of inflammation and causing heart disease, Alzheimer's disease, and diabetes. So these are the things that we really want to make sure that we prevent against. And so it's really important. Now, the skin itself is kind of the largest organ in the entire body. People don't kind of think of the skin as an organ, but it is kind of the barrier to our entire body. And we're going to discuss this because of the fact that because of that, these senescent or zombie cells actually occur more in the skin than anywhere else in the body. And the reason is because the skin acts as a barrier to infection, to all type of invaders, including bacteria, viruses, fungus, all these types of, like foreign invaders and microorganisms are, protected, protect our body by keeping it as a barrier. It's essentially the wall that kind of sits between us and what's internal, our internal organs, our brains, our nerves, and all the other things that are, quite valuable and important. So it is incredibly important. So what happens is that when the cells become, or, the DNA becomes damaged, I should say, then it ends up giving this fact. The fact is that because of that damage, then it's going to not be able to divide, cause inflammation, and thus it's going to kind of be sitting there. And because of the body would rather keep a cell present, even though it's non-functional or not dividing, as opposed to a cell that's not present at all, meaning like a cell dies and then kind of withers away, because of the fact that, the skin is so important as a barrier, it's often finds that these, non-dividing cells are preferable than having cells die completely. And so that's the reason why in the skin itself there are more senescent cells than anywhere else in the body. So this essentially is going to produce a few things that are present. Because of the decreased cell turnover, because of the decrease in production of stem cells, which are vitally important, but because of the fact that these cells are present and they are not functioning, they are not going to allow the large reservoir of stem cells that we really need to have skin and cell repair. What's going to be the manifestation of all of this is production of fine lines and wrinkles. It's going to create, hyperpigmentation or hypopigmentation, meaning that you produce either brown spots, red spots, areas of the skin that, the melanin becomes damaged. And the melanin, of course, carries pigment in the skin. Now, if it becomes damaged, you can be left with a hyperpigmented, skin area. And so, when you look at what the manifestation is, you have to kind of realize that the skin has multiple layers, and the epidermis is kind of like the top layer, which is constantly turning over, and this is super important. When this gets damaged, it's going to potentially cause inflammation, and you can see a lot of the fine lines and the scarring and the poor wound healing that can occur. But on top of it, the dermal layer, which is the deep layer, this often carries the melanin, and this is where you're going to be left with hyperpigmentation or pigmented cells, which what that looks like is, when you look at clear skin, you'll see that it's like a good kind of tone, as far as like it's well kind of kept throughout the body, meaning that you're not going to have cells that that are present that are changing the tone of the skin, and you're going to have evenness through the skin. The entire skin should be even as far as how it appears to every person on the externia. So the next thing that we want to talk about is with these zombie cells, they do cause the skin to become more brittle because of the fact that they're just not well positioned. And so you will get, cell turnover, but a lot of times it takes longer for cell turnover because of the fact that they're not dividing properly. And what you should understand, is that cell turnover is essential to prevent aging, and especially aging skin. And that's why we do a lot of procedures that promote cell turnovers, like peels, like microneedling, like exfoliating agents. Any of these things are important because skin turnover, to get rid of the dead or damaged skin, is super valuable to prevent fine lines, wrinkles, and just skin aging in general. So because of the fact that the cells are not dividing, they're not turning over quickly, and this is one of the major manifestations of having this zombie cells present, but also just in aging itself. It's going to cause, overall aging. As we get older, the cell turnover is slower, and thus you have trouble producing collagen and elastin. And so this is, very important because of the fact that without these products, the skin is going to be inferior and not be the same as it was when you were younger. And the other thing that does occur is that because of the fact that these cells are present and they cause inflammation, this is a perfect setup for certain areas that create either acne, create psoriasis, other blotches, and just unevenness in the skin in general, because of the fact that it's not allowing that proper cell turnover to occur. But more importantly, because of these zombie cells are so pro-inflammatory, they are going to often cause skin eruptions that we're obviously not happy with. And then a lot of times, because of the fact that the skin does not have the ability to turn over properly, then it's going to cause scarring. And the scarring could be, in the wake, just, like a scar, or it can be something more significant, like, a wrinkle, a line, or something that, an imperfection in the skin, which, does age us. And so you want to make sure that that is just not the case. So that's, that's one of the major parts of it. So one example of how this would be in like the real world. So let's just say you were out, in the sun, definitely not in the Jersey Shore right now, but let's say you were in the summer, because a lot of our patients do partake in the sun, as we talk a lot, and my phenomenal esthetician Alexa always tells you that no matter what time of year it is, make sure that you are using sunblock, and whether it's in the winter, in the summer, it doesn't matter. She will yell at you. She will tell you that it is vital that you protect yourself. And let's just say that, somebody did not get that message from Alexa, and they went out and got a sunburn. And so what is going to happen is that now you have, truly damaged skin. acutely damaged skin. And so what the body should want to do as quickly as possible is to kind of turn that over, get rid of that, and peel, and thus, create new kind of, skin that has a proper collagen, proper elastin to be able to, heal that damaged skin. Fibroblasts are cells that often do this, but if you have even senescent or zombie fibroblast cells, what's going to happen is that this damage is going to take much longer to turn over the skin, and thus you're going to end up having, problems, such as lines, wrinkles, and even wounds that can be created from the fact that the cell turnover is just too slow. And the reason why that happens is because you have damaged DNA, which creates senescent or zombie cells, created by the fact that you had something as simple as, lack of or diminished NAD, and thus causing the problem in the first place. And so this is kind of like the whole continuum of how this happens, why this happens, and we're going to try to take care of that and make sure that that's not the case. So when we talked last week a lot about this in our podcast, it was more of kind of a general discussion, like, how does this happen? What are we looking for? But now we're kind of like putting it into the real world. Like, what exactly causes this, and how do we fix this? So like I said, we talked about the fact that because of the limited of sirtuin cells are present because of the lack of NAD, or its cofactors like nutrients like curcumin or resveratrol are not present, it's going to create short telomeres, which are eventually going to decrease the longevity of the cell or the longevity of us itself, because this happens throughout the entire body. This is not just the skin, but we're honing in on kind of the manifestations of the skin because of this. And so what can we do to help prevent that? Well, I mean, when you get to the point of, this, where these zombie cells are present, they're going to obviously cause inflammation, cause acne, psoriasis, wounds not healing properly, fine lines, wrinkles, as well as unevenness of the skin, pigment issues. So the first thing that we talk about is what kind of promotes this elongation of telomere size, and that, of course, is sirtuins. And so what is the major things that help, that has been studied and has been found to enhance the sirtuins? The first thing that we talk about is going to be calorie restriction. And what I mean by that is decrease in calories, through diet, through exercise, but mostly not over kind of putting nutrients in our body is going to help to increase the production of calorie restriction, which is going to cause the sirtuins to increase, and thus it's going to positively affect our skin by limiting the number of zombie cells that are produced. So this is a perfect example, and we talk a lot about weight loss, of course, at Simply.Aesthetics, because of the fact that I find that it's something that not enough of the medical community kind of embraces, and it's something that for our overall health. I talk about like risk and benefit of certain things, peptides like GLPs, semaglutide, trizepatide, and alike, are so valuable even though there are potential side effects because of the fact that in a lot of cases when people have extra weight or are not calorie restricting, that is going to age them, and that is going to increase the risk of things like cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's disease, and diabetes, besides for the fact that it's going to aesthetically affect your overall skin, your pigment, the production of fine lines and wrinkles. So it is vitally important to your skin to be able to calorie restrict, besides for everywhere else. So we talk about, the other nutrients as well, resveratrol and curcumin, are also valuable in kind of boosting up this. But, the main thing is that key cofactor of NAD, which, if not present, is going to limit the production of the sirtuins, thus shortening telomeres, thus causing damage to the skin. And so, basically eliminating these are vitally important. And so this is one, easy way that we can kind of look at that. Besides for this, it is also important to understand that there are certain procedures that we can do that can help get rid of a lot of these zombie cells, especially in the dermal or the epidermal layer. One of the procedures that I'm going to discuss is something called microneedling. If you've heard of it, great. If you have not heard of it, it basically is a way that we use very small needles with a pen, it doesn't really hurt, to create an organized injury in the skin. And what do I mean by that? And so when you have, let's say, a scar is produced by, like, let's say you cut, this part of your face, with a scar, you decided not to do proper closure or anything. What will happen is that you will produce new cells like collagen and elastin to help kind of heal that wound. Now, because that wound is kind of very specifically present on one area, then you will see that wound right there. You will see the scar of that wound, but you will have these very special cells, collagen and elastin, to be present. And what happens is that you can, have the skin kind of improve or turn over. Sometimes with the scar, it's going to be uneven because of the fact that it only happened in one area. Now, if you had an injury to your entire face, let's just say, then what ultimately will happen is that the entire face is going to be bathed with these healing cells, collagen and elastin, and that's actually what we want. We want the production of more collagen, more elastin. Collagen obviously is vital to the health of your skin, and the fact that if you're lacking collagen, you're going to have thinner skin, you're going to have skin that potentially has lines, wrinkles, and so this is a problem. And of course, elastin, which actually helps the elasticity of your skin, how taut and tight your skin can be present, is also vital as well. And so with that, when we produce these cells, but what we're also doing is we're causing the cells to become turnover. Like there is quick turnover whenever we do microneedling, because of the fact that we're damaging the top layer of the skin. We're causing those cells to turn over, and this is great because it actually gets rid of a lot of those zombie cells which are causing havoc on our skin in the first place. A lot of different types of peels as well, will also be very valuable to, get rid of the dead skin, but also get rid of the zombie cells that are present that we have trouble, removing. And so this is also a really vital procedure, and it depends on each individual about who is going to be a better candidate for one or the other. But for sure, either peels or microneedling is great procedures to kind of promote the removal of these zombie cells, but also promote the increased production of collagen and elastin as well. We can introduce cells such as PRP and/or exosomes, which stimulate the production of stem cells. And stem cells are cells that are not yet differentiated, cells that are present but not completely their normal cells yet. They're kind of like blank cells. They're just blank cells that are waiting to become something. And a lot of times these are so vital because of the fact that if you have a brand new stem cell, it could often take the space of a damaged collagen cell in the dermis, damaged fibroblast, which has wound healing properties. And so what we find is that things like PRP and exosomes are excellent promoters of stem cell production. And so you can actually do PRP and/or exosomes with opening the channels of doing it with PRP, with microneedling, even sometimes with peels, and even some lasers as well. We use a lot of microneedling radiofrequency, which does great with these kind of production of stem cells, like this added stem cells by adding exosomes and PRP as well. So this is another great procedure that is super, super valuable when it comes to the fact that we are trying to, purge our skin from these zombie cells, which are causing inflammation, which are causing lines and wrinkles, which are causing, poor wound healing like psoriasis and acne and, other kind of blotches. And also hyperpigmentation. And with hyperpigmentation, this is kind of the production of kind of brown spots, red spots, unevenness of the skin. And what's really great for this is, any type of, resurfacing laser, which we, promote greatly to kind of help the unevenness of the skin and allow the skin to become uniform. And this is what we're trying to achieve with doing the resurfacing laser, because of the fact that damaged melanin is going to hold pigment even though it doesn't need to, and thus this is constantly going to be turned over every 28 to 30 days, which is the skin's turned over. But because it's in the deep layer, the permanent layer of the skin, you're not going to get the reduction of the pigment. And so a lot of times you have to go into with a more kind of invasive laser to actually help the overall uniformity of the skin, which is also valuable in aging. So these are some of the things that we, like we want to achieve, to get rid of, all the problems that occur because of the fact that our bodies are producing these non-dividing succinate cells, or zombie cells. And so make sure you're fully replenished with NAD, which we recommend 100 milligrams twice a week, intramuscular, or 400 milligrams intravenous, as really kind of the best, medical procedure you can get, to kind of replenish the NAD. And obviously supplementing with curcumin, resveratrol, also valuable to produce these sirtuins, which are going to help, prevent damaged DNA and thus prevent the production of these zombie cells, as well as if you're, at the point where you've had this and you've developed these cells, you often need procedures to help kind of improve this and get rid of those zombie cells that are already present. And the best way to do that, acutely, is things like microneedling, things like peels, things like laser for hyperpigmentation, and adding PRP and exosomes are also perfect adjuncts to producing stem cells, which is going to ultimately give you, the loss of the zombie cells, loss of the inflammation, and production of healthy, newer cells that are going to help not allow the fine lines, wrinkles, and just aging of the skin in general. So this is kind of what we're, looking at, like how this occurs, what we can do to prevent it, and what we can do if it does happen to improve it. So, by all measure, we could look at, prevention and or treatment when this does happen. And so these are the things that we kind of focus on when it comes to these zombie cells, and when we try to focus on how we can prevent and treat them as well. So this is today's podcast. I hope you did enjoy it. This is, again, Dr. Robert Frankel, and I appreciate your listenership. I value it. So if you do like this content, please do like, share, and subscribe to this podcast. It does help us to be able to produce even more exciting content. And I can tell you that in the year 2025, there's going to be a lot of exciting content because we have a lot of great things that are present out there that we can improve. And so, again, thank you for your listenership, and have a great day.